Uh, First off, I started playing games off stream a little bit more because I don't know. I feel like the stream, it was weird. It was like this weird thing where I would stream, right? I'd be like, oh, like I want to stream. There's a new game coming out. I want to play it, with you guys and stuff like that, which I do. But I don't have the time to stream all the time, or at least not as much as I would like to. And then what that turns into is me not playing the game because I'm waiting for the right time to stream. The time never comes, and I just never play these games. And I was getting like a serious backlog going on, and I wanted to start catching up on that. So I finished. Well, I continued Pokemon Violet off stream. I still have a few more things to do in that, and then I played a game that I actually would like to talk about with you guys before I get into the into today's stream. So I guess this is kind of like a game review. You could consider it a game review, because I'm gonna talk about it and my experience and how I feel about it and stuff like that. So the game I played is a game called Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy 1 Origin. You guys may remember that was the one where it got memed to death because during the trailer, during the reveal, the dude just kept saying, "I want to kill chaos. I gotta kill chaos, chaos, chaos," and that kind of became like a little bit of a meme. Maybe it was intentional too. Sometimes I feel like sometimes when they make these trailers and stuff, they purposely make it memeable, you know, so that everybody's gonna kind of like remember it and quote it and and share it everywhere. So maybe that was the case here, maybe not. But yeah, so Stranger of Paradise, and what I liked about it was basically an origin slash spin-off of the original Final Fantasy game, which you guys may or may not know is one of my favorite games. I love the original Final Fantasy. Excuse me. The original Final Fantasy is probably in my childhood what got me into role-playing games. Um, it was like the first, and I'm not that old. I know I say like I'm a video game boomer and I feel old on Twitch and stuff, and I'm not young, but I'm not old. Um, I didn't play Final Fantasy when it came out. It came out in like the 80s, something like that. I think it came out 87, 89. I didn't I didn't play it then. I played it. I was weird, man. I always liked my Nintendo. I always had my Nintendo hooked up, even when I got new consoles. Like I got like I got you know a Genesis, but I still had the Nintendo hooked up. And then I got the 32X, and I still had the Nintendo hooked up. And then the PlayStation came out. I got a PlayStation, still had the original Nintendo hooked up. And while having that Nintendo hooked up, as I met friends and everything, they would always be like, "Oh, I don't play with my Nintendo anymore. Like, I have some games, you could have them if you want them." Like, it was crazy, man. Back then, that was just kind of how it was. Now I feel like people are afraid to give away games because everybody has this like fear that their shit's gonna be worth a fortune, and they will have given away their retirement fund and everything. And I think it's funny because that fear is devaluing games anyway, because now everybody just keeps them, and like nobody wants to pay for a secondhand game anymore. But I digress with that. But yeah, over the years, like I would always have the Nintendo hooked up, and I think it was around, I want to say like 1995 or six. Like around there. I finally got my hands on a Final Fantasy cart, I still have that exact cart to this day. I have my original Final Fantasy cart that I played, fell in love with, and I don't think it saves games anymore though. That's the thing that sucks. Yo, what's up, Zordon? Chat about Inuyasha. I don't know what Inuyasha is. But yeah, I was just about. I'm kind of going through my spiel for Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. I played that recently, and just wanted to talk about it. So I have. Let me see. I can share you guys what I kind of did here, and I guess I'm gonna spoil my own. Inuyasha loves both Kagome and Kikyo, but he also has tumult with his brother Sesshomaru. I don't know what this is a reference to, but it sounds juicy, and I'm into it. Hold on, let me I'll do a window capture. So I'm gonna spoil my own review, so you'll see the scores right away. But you know, it's not like that because I don't really care about scores that much. So check it out. So here's kind of what I did. And I'm only gonna show you this one because I'm gonna kind of show you how I do my grades. Or actually, what if I did this? How about this? I got an idea. What if I hide this? Hold on a second. I have a plan. What if I made a text? If I made a text, and I'll just call it review. Alright, and then select font. Let me change it to the font that I'm using for everything else. So it looks... Let's see, here we go. His father, the great dog demon, gave him the sword Tessega, but gave Sesshomaru Tenseiga. Sweet. Review! Here we go. So here we go. We're gonna do like a review. So I'll bring this over here. I'll bring my ghost up a little bit. Alright, there we go. So let's do this. Let's do it this way. I think this is probably a better way to do it than try to than trying to capture capture my window. Yeah. So basically the way I did this, right, was I set it up into multiple sections, right? So we're gonna say, can you do a return? Gameplay? No, you can't. Okay. So let's do review, gameplay, story, music, graphics. Okay, so story, music, graphics. Then I did an average score, and then I did an X factor, and then overall. All right, so basically, here's how I set up my review. Okay, so we're gonna say, oh, I see. So when I do this, I have to edit it in here. Okay, that's fine. So we're gonna say, so we'll say Final Fantasy 1 Origin. All right, so let me do this with you guys real quick. I don't usually do scores when I talk about games because I feel like it's just so arbitrary, and then like sometimes over time, like you'll look and it'll be like, you know, I gave Super Mario Brothers 3 and like Spy Hunter the same score, but like, you know, obviously I like one way more than the other. But for this, I'm gonna try to do it this way. So yeah, so Final Fantasy 1 Origin, Stranger of Paradise, you know, you play as a character named Jack. This is gonna have spoilers in it potentially. You play as a character named Jack, who ultimately is the final villain of the original Final Fantasy game, right? So that's a pretty cool concept because you play as this guy, you grow attached to him, and then what do you know? You end up killing him in the original game. So how are they going to make you like this guy? How are they going to make you care about him? Uh, so maybe I should swap story and gameplay here. Hold up. Since I'm talking about the story anyway, talk about the story. So yeah, like so you play as Jack. It's a spin-off or a prequel of Final Fantasy 1. It took some liberties with the story. It elaborated on some of the characters, um, specifically like Astos. If you remember Astos, the Dark Elf King. He's like a wizard in the game, in the original game, and he'll whip your ass if you go against him at a low level. But yeah, he's a big character in this game. Um, and It elaborates on the Lufinians. If you remember, there's an area called like Lufilm, something. What was it? It was Lufhelm in uh in Final Fantasy 1, and it's like it was that area where you couldn't understand anybody's language. You had to get the Rosetta Stone to learn the language, and it was like they're like an ancient people that built Cornelia and everything. So they elaborate on that story. It's really cool. So you get to kind of like contact the Lufinians and speak with them. Um, One of the things that I was kind of disappointed was there was no Matoya backstory. I remember Matoya um, was she was a witch, and Astos stole her crystal eye, right? And but she's not in this at all. So I feel like that would have been a good chance to uh, have a little bit of her in there. And it's really cool because the story is very familiar. You fight the four fiends. You see some of the original villains like the Pisco demons. I always like those. Of course, goblins and stuff like that. Some of the things that you meet, along with some of the things that I'm not sure if I remember them being in the original one, like the Malboro. I think, yeah, you fight those guys. I think around Mount Gulg, right? But speaking of Mount Gulg, yeah, like all the locations are familiar. You go to Mount Gulg, you go to the marsh, the underwater temple. All this stuff is very familiar, and it's really interesting the way they do it. So I did like the story a lot, but it definitely wasn't perfect. They took some liberties that I liked, some that I didn't. They had to elaborate. So I gave that a 7 out of 10. I thought that was pretty fair. Uh, it wasn't perfect, so definitely not a 10. It wasn't amazing, so not a 9 or an 8. But it was definitely above average. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was fun to play through, and you meet some cool characters um, along the way. Some new characters. So let's go to the gameplay. So it was cool the way they did it. You go from location to location um, by clicking on the map. Although I do wish that there were some instances where you were actually walking through the world map, maybe able to grind by going ogre hunting, just like the old times. Uh, you know, get some random encounters, stuff like that. There's none of that. You basically click location to location. Um, the combat is really cool. The job system is a lot of fun. There's like talent trees, and you unlock jobs. At the end of each tree, you unlock a job, and then there's some like tier 2 jobs where you need to unlock in multiple trees, and then there's tier 3 jobs where you need to unlock in several. trees. So it's really cool system. And then ultimately, I think I ended up with um, it was a breaker with a lance. That's who I made Jack, and he was backed up with a samurai and a red mage who I turned into a void knight, which is basically a a knight and a black mage at the same time. So that was pretty cool. It was a lot of fun, but like I said, I wish there was a little bit more exploration, less clicking location to location, going through a dungeon. So this also, I gave it a 7 out of 10. Imagine that. Um, so yeah, so the next thing I'm talking about here is music, right? So they did some really well done remakes of the original, but they matched the style with the game. There was some like electronic, like and synths and stuff like that. It wasn't an Oimatsu score or anything like that. It was a whole nother team, but I think they did a pretty decent job, and they used some familiar sounds. Um, with some of the old dungeon music, the Cornelia music, uh, very very familiar stuff. So I definitely with Final Fantasy, I very rarely have a problem with the music, and this was not an exception. This was a really good soundtrack. They did a really good job, and it matched the game, so I was in on it. It's all in. So the graphics, it looks good, but some of the locations were starting to get a little bit samey. A lot of the dungeons started to look the same to me. And I started to run into those situations where, when every room looks the same, I run in a circle, and I realized that I ran into a circle a few times. Um, it borrowed that thing from Dark Souls also, where like when you go to a save point, you respawn all the enemies. So like it was one of those situations where if like you did the wrong thing and ended up back where you started, and you were just like, oh shit, I need to save, I need to heal and save and all that. You do that, and all the enemies come back, and then it kind of makes it hard to keep track of where you've been. Um, but overall, it was good graphics. I think they could have gotten a little bit better score if they would have, like I said before with the gameplay, if they put a world map where you could walk around outside and just show some nice pretty hills or something like that, instead of going, instead of clicking on a map to go to your next, dungeon. Because yeah, all the dungeons, they were all dark and misty. The mist was kind of a theme of the game, I suppose. But still, that was, it would have been a lot nicer if they allowed you to explore outside, see nice like forests, see nice, plains, running over hills. You know what I'm talking about in these like fantasy games where like you just got an open world and you just, go on top of a hill and you could see the whole landscape and you're just like, wow, this game is beautiful. Like there was no moment like that. It was all just dungeons and everything like that. But it did look good. Very, very minor uh, instances where things were like jittery or anything like that. So for that, I give it an 8 out of 10. So let's see. I already did the math, but the average score right now, that would make it a 7.75. And that's why I added this right here, the X factor. What is the X factor? So the X factor is one of those, I just added that in because sometimes you play a game and you look back on it and you're just like, yeah, that was a 6 out of 6. It was a pretty average game, average game, average game. But there was something about the game that you just loved it and it added to the game. Or maybe there was something about the game that bothered you and you're just like, nah, like I'm gonna deduct points from my score just because of that. So that's why I added the X factor. So for me, the X factor for this game, obviously there's a lot of nostalgia, right? Final Fantasy 1 is one of my favorite games of all time. I'm planning on doing another playthrough of it with you guys here sometime soon. You know, when the Pixel remasters come out, I'm gonna try and platinum each one on the PlayStation. I have the PS5 now, so I'm gonna be playing on that a lot. So I wanted to play through that with you guys, maybe do trophy hunting again. I thought that was fun when we did the when we 100%ed Final Fantasy 1 on Steam when it came out. I thought that was really cool. So we'll do that again. But yeah, it's like a big nostalgia for me. The nostalgia hit with this game, it hit all the right keys. Um, there's a little bit of a twist about the four fiends. I wish I had seen it sooner, but I will admit it took me till like one of the last scenes of the game to be like, oh, I see what they're doing here. Um, so you know, it was pretty decent storytelling. They worked with the characters. I wish there was Matoya. In fact, I wish there was a lot more characters. I feel like there was a few towns that I feel like we didn't get to see from the original one. That, since we're not doing a world map, at least they could have given us more towns, right? There were no dwarfs, no laliho dwarfs, you know, stuff like that. But the nostalgia hit, and it did a really good job at that. So for the X factor, this is getting a +1, which would make an overall score of 8.75, which I think is a pretty damn good score here. So yeah, that's how I feel about Stranger of Paradise. So I'm sorry I didn't play that with you guys. I really do want to stream more, but it just doesn't happen. And if I'm not going to stream more, I would like to at least enjoy games because that's like one of the very few things that I do um, have it as like a hobby of mine. I have a few hobbies, but uh, gaming has always been a big part of my life, and I've neglected it for a couple of years now because I've been streaming, and then when the streaming, excuse me, oh man, I'm sorry. When I started streaming less, um, then I started gaming less, and I started watching other people stream, and after I'd watch them stream, I'd be like all bummed out because it's like, man, I wish I streamed. I wish I played a game. Oh, like I could have done something cool. I could have done this or that. But hold on, let me get some music back here. Sorry about that. I'm gonna do like a nice upbeat music. How's that? So yeah, like, but I digress with that. I really wanted to play a game, and I did. I played Stranger of Paradise. It was it was a great game. I know it got a lot of criticism. A lot of people, shit talk that game. Um, which is disappointing because it's one of those things where the bigger the fan, the more they hate. You know what I mean? And it's like, why are you doing that to yourself, to the hobby? If you love the game, if you love gaming, you love video games, you love Final Fantasy, and then this game comes out and you just can't find anything positive to say about it. That's just a damn shame. But yeah, I love the game. I'm gonna keep playing it. It does have a replayability where you can go back and like change the difficulty, so you could get like the same weapons, but like you could get an epic level instead of like a heroic level. Things like that. Um, so that's gonna be fun. I'm gonna go back and do some of that. So okay. So that does it for my review. I hope you guys enjoyed the the talk here. So I'm gonna get off of my stage and let's get into some gaming.